Hello, we are going to do another box office showdown, and today we're going to feature two natural enemies, Thor and Minions. This is actually the matchup that got me to want to do this show because I found it really fun. These movies both came out in July of 2022, so theaters were opening back up, but movies were definitely way trailing behind where they were once upon a time in the pre-COVID days. We're still hopefully on that road to recovery, but at this point, yeah, people were not going back to theaters as much, but these movies did very well. Of course, Thor was a Marvel movie, and Minions, they've been around a while. Thor opened up with about $40 million more in its opening weekend, but I knew kids' movies tend to stick around longer. Marvel movies tend to be a bit more front loaded, and I was really curious which movie would prevail by the end. And this is one where I am actually a fan of both franchises. I think because Thor started out, it was such a bigger opening weekend that it's fun to root for the underdog, and you can't get much smaller than a Minion compared to Thor. So let's jump right into it. Specifically, we are looking at Thor, Love and Thunder, and then Minions, The Rise of Gru. Thor is on that red line there, and Minions, the blue line. And of course, we see that Thor opens up with that really big, healthy $40 million lead. And how long would it take before the Minions could really bite into that? And you see Minions trail off. I would say Thor has a much better day 10. It really opens the gap there some more. And I wasn't sure at that point how Minions would do, but as you see, the gap gets closed. It gets smaller and smaller. The summer movies are ferocious as well. There's always more competition coming out. Family films stick around longer than other tent poles. I believe this is especially true in the summer when there's one massive action movie after another coming out. And that is definitely part of the equation. And as we see, it gets so slim. And then by day 26, that's when we're in a virtual tie at about $307 million. So again, we're not talking about a movie failing here. Both of these movies are bringing in a lot of money. As it goes from there, the Minions just slowly widen that advantage to the point that Thor, Love and Thunder is out after 98 days, which is still a hell of a run, bringing in $343 million. The Minions stick around 124 days to bring in $369 million. So if you take away that opening weekend advantage of about 40 million, Minions finish off with a victory around $25 million. So after that first weekend, Minions really outshine Thor by more than $60 million. And let's look at the tail of the tape here, because of course, that's just domestic box office. When we're looking at international numbers, the appeal of the Minions are enormous. $567 million added on. Didn't quite hit the $1 billion mark, but still in this environment that we had in 2022, when people aren't quite yet going back to movies, it brought in $937 million. Thor, on the other hand, again, no movie here that we're talking about was a failure. Thor brought in over $400 million, but when you look at the worldwide total, that is a dominating victory for Minions, nearly $200 million different. But of course, as we do, we're not just looking at how much money was brought in, but how much money was spent. And the budget on Minions Rise of Gru was unbelievably reasonable and smart. Not something you see nearly enough in Hollywood. Only $100 million. So we are looking at a multiplier here of 9.4 times the production budget. Again, we'd love to get somewhere around 4x, and this one did 9.4 times the production budget. Huge success for Universal Studios and all of the production companies and distribution companies involved with this movie. A lot of money got brought back to the studio so that they can reinvest in more storytelling, and we always love to see that. Thor, Love and Thunder, and again, we're calling a winner and a loser here. Minions beat Thor, but Thor did also make money, which is a great thing. However, its total compared to the production is just a 3x. This movie made money probably after the theatrical window. And when you bring in things like product placement, other merchandising, t-shirts and toys sold, things like that, it made money, but it did not make money. I would say it did not make money in theaters. And let's see, how is that? Well, it cost Minions $100 million to make. It cost Thor and Taika Waititi, who I love, $250 million to make that movie. Now, when I was looking at this back in 2022, I thought to myself, what if They made that movie for $200 million. Would the end result on screen be that different? Would the cinema score be higher? Would it have more repeat viewings if it was made for $200 million? Still not a shabby amount of money. If they were able to do that, if they were able to make that movie for $200 million instead of $250 million, then the studio would have had another $50 million to maybe make a $50 million movie or two $25 million movies. Of course, you have to market all those, and that's more money as well. But could there have been a chance to find other movies to take smaller gambles on, mitigate your risk a little bit, find other movies that could have possibly struck a chord with an audience and become a sleeper hit and turn a $10, $12 million movie into a $50 million profit? Meanwhile, Thor Love and Thunder is this big lumbering behemoth that is a really big boulder to push up that hill. And even after bringing in $760.9 million, they still didn't cross that finish line to making money. That is crazy to me. You got to take big risks to make big rewards. And this is one that, again, they did make money at the end of the day, but could they have spent that money a little bit more wisely, spread it around to more than one movie, and still been able to bring that $760 million in on a $200 million budget? And then you are profitable here. Of course, you don't want the accountants making the creative decisions, but there's ways to kind of find a balance there. So the battle between the Minions and Thor Love and Thunder, again, there's not a failure here, but without question, the Minions were the huge winner over the Norse god. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you have an idea for a showdown for a future episode. Thanks for watching.